comes a time in every hockey player's career where they have to decide if they want to gain control of the things that are going on, or if they're going to simply just kind of coast along and just let their career kind of fizzle out. And when that shift happens, the shift that's really happening is going from someone who is simply just an employee when it comes to their hockey career. They're somebody who just kind of shows up and does what the coach says and leaves. And then they shift into the CEO. They shift into the boss or the manager or the owner of their career. They actually take ownership. And that's the mindset shift that you're going to have to make if you really want to make it to the next level. And so I want to go into detail about where this shift has to come from and how to really think about it to really make that jump and to go to where you want to go with your career. Because if you're listening to this, you're probably somebody who wants to go play, whether it's major, junior, NCAA, professional hockey, and I want to help you understand how you can maximize your chances of doing all of those things or whatever it is that you're wanting to do. Let's break this down. So the biggest thing when it comes to gaining control is becoming the CEO. Now, what does it mean to actually be the CEO of your career? Well, what it means is that really what's happening if you want to be successful is realizing that somebody either has to be the CEO for you or you have to actually take full ownership. Now, what is a CEO? It's the leader of a company. It's the chief executive officer. It's basically the person who tells everybody what to do and directs where the company goes when it comes to business. But hockey is so much like business that you would be mind-boggled when you really get into it and you really dig into it. So if you want to become that person, you want to become the CEO, the person who calls the shots, the person who's doing all those things, realize that for the beginning of a hockey player's career, pretty much the whole thing is you are spending pretty much like 10 to 15 years of that career with your parents assuming that role. So basically what happens is that your parents will assume that role because, well, number one, the player needs guidance. They love their son or daughter and they want them to succeed. They spend the most time with their son or daughter, like they spend a ton of time with them, so naturally they're going to have these conversations. And it's hard to trust a coach because a lot of times coaches have different intentions and you don't always know what their intentions are. So if they're not necessarily helping your son or daughter with development, you have to take it into your own hands. It can get pretty pricey with coaches. So some coaches get pretty expensive and it can be tough to justify spending, $50,000 a year on all the different development opportunities. So it becomes a question of, is it really worth investing in a lot of these things? And for some people, it's not worth that level of investment. So that's the thing. And also sometimes coaches can get confusing. That's also the other component is people just aren't clear. And so I don't know if all parents realize this when they do take on this role, but it's a full-time job. And it really is the fact that you're taking this on and you're becoming the person who is helping your son or daughter basically have control of their career. And it sucks if you don't know what you're doing. It can really make it harder for your son or daughter to feel like they have the power to be the best they can be. So it's tough. And if you're a player listening to this, it's you want to make this shift in your game to being able to take ownership. And now, really where I got this concept from was a guy named Daryl Belfry. So you might know who he is, but basically Daryl is, I would say, the best skill development coach probably ever in hockey. So he's worked with Sidney Crosby, Nathan McKinnon, Patrick Kane, Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, Matt Barzal, John Tavares, Jack Hughes, and so many more. And recently, he made a blog post about the idea of being basically a great CEO, and I thought it was a really, really good post. And one of the quotes he said was you have to be a really good CEO of your company if you want to be successful. So the best players in the world think about development like a CEO thinks of a company. And a CEO of a company thinks, how do I manage my assets? So how do I manage my time and the people around me's time, like our employees and like whoever's connected to the business? How do I manage our money, our energy, our products, our people, our tools, our technology, our information? And how do we do that? How do we manage those assets to maximize the outputs in terms of changing the world or making an impact in the world, making more money, gaining more power, or whatever whatever other outcome they want to generate? That's what they're trying to do with their assets, is figure out how to take those assets and turn them into outputs. So think about what the inputs that you need to put into your career to get the outputs you want. But first of all, you want to get clear on what are the outputs you even want. And then you got to make a strategic plan and make those bets, because that's what they're doing. It's really not much different for a player, because you say, okay, my assets are I have time, money, energy, I have my mind, body, and skill. I have the tools that are around me. It could be sticks, pucks, your gear. It could be the different gym equipment. It could be the place you have to work out, whether you have like a hill to sprint up, whether you have like sand to do running and workouts in. There's all these different tools you have around you, and it's a lot of times it's being able to leverage those effectively is what I help a lot of guys with. Then you have technology, so similar to tools, but what tech do you have? Do you use different applications? Do you have different like player analysis stuff? Do you have coaches? Do you have other information that could help? What assets do you have? And then you want to maximize the outputs in terms of being a good leader, making successful plays, obviously the goals, the assists, wins, winning championships, getting next level offers from different teams, different programs, NCAA, pro, whatever it is that you're shooting for. And as I've said before, you have a limited amount of time. So if your goal is to maximize your potential, you must take full ownership of your career, or you need to hire somebody who is going to take some investment in that. And it might be your parents, it might be your mom or your dad who takes that on, but somebody has to take that on. And a lot of times for a player, it's you. And the reason it can't usually be a parent is because a parent will naturally say, they go through this process of, well, I got to learn if I want to be good. So naturally, I'm going to go do the research. So they go on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, read books, newsletters, magazines, websites. If you're a parent, you should be doing that stuff if you want to help your son or daughter play better. And I know that this is what the best parents do, because this is what I watched my dad do. And I watched him do all this work, learn all these things about hockey, and then it was insane the amount of time he actually put in. And the thing is your parents are probably doing the same. And if they are, if they're not, then it is what it is. You got to take ownership now. But if they are, you got to realize, like, the challenge that a parent will run into is that you or your son or daughter, if you're a parent listening to this, stops listening to you. There's a son or your son or daughter finds someone else that they actually want to listen to more, so then they stop listening. Or you don't necessarily have the information that your son or daughter needs in order to get to the next level. Like, you're limited in the information. And this is the challenge that I faced as a young hockey player. It wasn't really the last one. It was more so that I learned a ton from my dad, and then I didn't really want to listen to him anymore. You get kind of sick of hearing a lot of things, and there becomes this emotional investment where you're both really bought into the career because there's so much time sunk in, there's so much energy and just so much life put into it, and we both just care too much. And so that was the problem, is our hockey talks would just get heated all the time. And this is pretty common in a lot of like father-son kind of sport relationships or scenarios. And I bring this to your attention just because, like, it's not effective. These conversations just don't help. And so as I got older, I realized that there were ways that I probably could have been better as a player and I could have listened more. And if I could go back, I would definitely learn to communicate better with him. That's what I try to teach a lot of my clients, is how to have those better conversations. So I'm going to highlight some kind of mental frameworks that I think will help you as a player, not necessarily just communicate with your parents better, but understand how to approach just your overall development. Because if you don't get clear on this, it's going to hurt you. So I'm going to try to say these as musts, because I'm going to treat you as somebody who's trying to get to the NHL. And I'm going to tell you what the NHLers, the soon-to-be NHLers, the pros, the high-level guys, what they did, what their parents did. this is what separates the best players. And I listened to it over and over. I watched it happen with so many hockey careers. So the 3 frameworks I'm going to go over is basically becoming a good CEO, hiring a co-CEO, and then building your performance team. We're going to talk about the first 2 today. I'm actually going to leave the 3rd one out of this blog. I already left it out because it's just a lot. So here are the 2 things. So number 1, becoming a good CEO. So becoming a good CEO really comes down to realizing really when this happens, like when you have to become this for yourself. So I didn't know it, but around kind of like 16, 17, I had like mentally decided that I was going to kind of like fire my dad as the CEO and assume that position myself. And that's like a natural thing that happens with most like sons as they kind of go on in their career. And what kind of happened is like my dad became more of like a consultant for me. That's the way I looked at it. And I think he kind of realized that at a certain point too. And I now kind of realized like, okay, I am now both the owner and the CEO of my company, and my company being my hockey ability and my hockey career. And this was in my junior career. And it seemed exciting at first, but it soon became very stressful. And it became even more challenging when I moved away from home in junior, which happens for a lot of players very young. And I think most players face this same challenge when they move away. So they assume most of the responsibility for their hockey career, right? Because you kind of have to. So they may consult with your parents, like you may talk to your parents here and there, but you have to really be the boss and make the decisions because you're the one doing it. And a lot of times you don't get a lot of support from coaches. You don't get a lot of support from really anybody in the coaching staff if the coaching staff just isn't really that great, which unfortunately happens quite a bit. And this can mean you get a lot of frustration, a lot of doubts, a lot of anxiety, a lot of sadness, a lot of depression for players. It's not really a thing that people talk about much, but it's a very common thing at high-level sports because players put their life into it and then they don't really always get it back. And so I felt all these things as a player. And when I went through these things, I felt them strongly. And there was a lot of times where I wanted to stop playing. And it sucks when oftentimes it probably could have been prevented, or I could have managed these things a lot better. And I wish I had someone like myself, like a performance coach, to be able to help me through these times, to be able to help me actually deal with the emotions, to be able to talk through these things, to have mental frameworks to process it, and to have different perspectives to realize that there was so much more to my game than just like this moment in time and these emotions I was going through. And I've had so many clients even just this year that have went through this, and we've been able to make these massive shifts where they felt like their career was over, they had no options, and then all of a sudden things click back into gear and they realize, oh, I have so much opportunity, and suddenly all the possibilities just open up for you. And that's the craziest thing, is that I would have played more consistently, and I probably would have just played better. I would have enjoyed it more, I would have been happier, because these are all the things that I now get I wasn't doing. There were these huge gaps in my mental toolbox or tool set, and I just didn't really have them. And I tried to learn them through reading like sports books and business books and all these different things, but those things are very often fragmented and don't provide a full system. And so that's what I'm trying my best to do, especially through these blogs, is give you a much more overall understanding of a system you can use to optimize performance. And it really starts with being the CEO or hiring a co-CEO. But you kind of have to take ownership regardless. I don't think there's a scenario where you're not going to take ownership. And so, again, most great players see themselves as the boss in their career. And this is what I've seen through looking at like hundreds of different players and understanding their career paths. And another thing to realize is you have the responsibility to manage your physical body, your skill development, your mental development, your social life, your education, work if you need to make money, which most people do. And then these things can really stress you out. And some players are lucky to have knowledgeable parents who can consult them, or somebody in their life you can consult with. But a lot of times, again, those things are just, you're too connected. Like your parents are going to be so connected to your performance that it's hard not to get frustrated and feel like, and have them feel like they're not too emotionally wrapped up in things. So that's the thing to consider. That maybe it's time that you have a co-CEO. Maybe it's time that you actually work with somebody, you bring someone in who can work with you, and someone who can really allow you to be able to come in and be your person that you kind of like offload a lot of your mental stress to. And the way to think of this is you allow them to have a say in your physical body and how you train it, your skill development path, your mental development, your social life, your education work, all these things. And have them help you optimize your whole life, because that's what it takes to be the best player you can be. One of the things that Daryl Belfry said in that article that I thought was great was really just mentioning, like, that's what the best players do when it comes to NHL development, is it's about realizing it's your whole life that has to be high performance. It can't just be at the rink. Maybe in the past and earlier times in hockey, you could get away with slacking and not really pushing yourself fully. But now if you want to compete and be one of the top, 700 players in the world, the only way to be able to do that is if you fully commit to it. And a lot of times players, it's hard. They find it hard to invest all of their time. So sometimes if you can get a little bit of a mental edge or be able to let off some of that like responsibility and have someone else help you, it's going to make a big difference. And I'm going to share with you the approach that I take for my guys who I work with all the way from minor, junior, college, and pro. I'll tell you what works with them and what we kind of do to really advance their careers. So what do? What I basically do is I help players to take a holistic approach. So I have players consider everything that could be making them better and everything that's not making them better. And I'm constantly searching for the latest thing to help players become the best they can be on and off the ice. So I look at the complex hockey world and I simplify it for players so that they can level up and save them the most amount of time I can save them so they can be most efficient with their time, they can be most efficient with their money, and they can be most efficient with their energy or effort. And I try to filter out all of the bullshit for clients, like all of the things that get in the way, all the things that really would be paths that players could walk down and then realize it's not really the path to go. I focus on helping players avoid that because I've watched so many different like trajectories and also learned from so many people who've dealt with so many trajectories and try to have them avoid those mistakes. And I help my clients to see what will actually help them instead of wasting their time on useless fluff on the internet. So now step 2, I then look at a player's game and lifestyle and help them understand their own identity, so who they are as a player. And then I help them develop their mental and physical lifestyle, so their habits, routines, social life, and just how they act in the world. And the reason I can do this is because I know the challenges of going through minor, junior, and college hockey. I've studied thousands of hours of psychology and hockey performance material. So I've studied also like what all of the best players have done. I studied what all the experts say to do. And then I've studied hypnosis, persuasion, communication on a deep level and have a high level of persuasion skills. So this stuff allows me to bring a unique perspective to most hockey players. And it's not that like rah-rah coaching where it's just like, work hard. That's the solution. What I do is I explain why it actually matters to work hard. What are the components that go into pushing yourself? And the players I work with, that's how they unlock their highest performance as quick as possible. And now, we take a long-term approach. This is the third step. We take a long-term approach, and we understand that to become your best self, it is a lifelong process, and it's always a multi-year perspective. Now, you can learn a lot and transform very quickly in a program, but over time, players can reach an entirely new level and really see levels of their game that they've never thought were possible. But this long-term approach is really key because it helps us to be able to build the right character traits like confidence, like leadership, like poise, like respect, honestly. Like these are why we're starting to see most of our guys that work with us for really over 6 months are getting they're like assistant captains on teams or getting captain opportunities. They're getting scholarships. They're moving up to higher leagues. They're moving up the lineup and getting more opportunities to run like power play or things like that. Because at the end of the day, getting to the next level is more than just skill. It's about becoming multi-dimensionally jacked. And we talked about this in our last week's identity letter, so you can always go back to that. But that's what it's about. It's about being just strong in all areas, mentally and physically. If you have both, then you really become unstoppable. So that's really the key thing I wanted to go over today. And now, when it comes to building your performance team, we're not going to go deep, but what I want to say here is I know that I don't have all the answers. So that's why I encourage you to build your own performance team. So if you want to have a CEO that helps you look at the big picture, that's the key, because I think that's going to help accelerate things and really help you to avoid making big mistakes. That's the person who's going to help you see the overview of your career. They're going to help you strategize. But now you also want to realize you want to hire out individual people, like a skills coach, like a personal trainer, like a mental coach. Basically, I am a mental coach in the fullest sense. But really, at the end of the day, you want to hire out these kind of areas of performance, these expertise, people with these expertise, because that's how you're going to level up. But not everybody has unlimited cash flow, so not everybody can invest like infinite amounts of money. So you got to work smarter. So you have to understand that you have to do your own research and build up your own kind of tribe of coaches virtually. And you want to do research through the same thing your parents would do or have done, is go on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, books, newsletters, magazines, websites. And this is why I spent like the last 8 years doing, is collecting all these insights and put them into courses into our Next Level Academy. So this is every player I work with gets access to this. And this just helps players to be able to really have like a ton of condensed lessons that actually work for players. And they're things that you can test out and see if they work for you. And you can check that out. You can go to courseandsearles.com/identity shift method, or actually courseandsearles.com/gain control of your hockey career. You'll find it if you just search courseandsearles.com/blog too. It might also be identityShiftHockey.com/blog by the time you're reading this. Now, you can check that stuff out. And what I want to leave you with here is kind of this final point. I want to just kind of end it here before we go too deep, because hiring out your team is actually quite complex. But next week we'll dig deeper into building the team and spending your time wisely. But the key factor here is that it comes down to thinking about everybody has the same amount of time every day, same amount of time every week, year, but then they allocate their time to different things. And you learn pretty quick that the things you allocate more time to are the things that you end up being like stronger in. But the problem is certain things, if you put energy into it, so you take the time to put it in, sometimes you actually like get less, and it like pulls energy away from you. That's what I noticed with like TikTok or Instagram. It's more of a distraction that you put energy in, and you actually don't gain energy, you lose energy. But now if you put energy into, let's say you like make a healthy meal, or you go do a workout, you put those coins in and then you get them back later on. You learn something. You may spend some time, so you invest some time in learning something new, but then you gain something from it. So don't make the mistake of thinking that everything you invest your time in is making you better. A lot of times there are things that are sucking your energy away, and you want to catch those and become aware of those. So we'll go in detail in the next video, so make sure you're subscribed to either the YouTube channel or you are subscribed to our newsletter or whatever it is that you're looking at that you want to be subscribed to, or the podcast, so that you actually see the next one. Because we're going to continue this conversation and have this continued conversation about what these components are. But the next step and the next destination we'll get into is building your team, spending your time wisely. And the way that I look at it is like it's like watering the right plants so you can grow the fruits you want. You can think of it more like farming, in the sense of you want to make sure that you plant the right crops, and then you want to put the right nutrients there so that those things grow. But if you give weeds or things you don't want to grow energy, those things grow and cause you more problems than they do solve things. So you want to be very conscious of what you select and what you pick to spend your time in, because it can cost you a lot if it's pulling you down and sucking your energy away. So hope that makes sense. Hope that's helpful. Hope you have a great week and you crush it. I will talk to you guys soon, and that's it for me. Bye-bye.